Brenna. My name is Hiwa. I'm really excited to do this reading for you. So before I get into it, I'm just gonna light some Palo Santo just to kind of like clear the energy. But yeah, I'm really excited. Your chart has so many synchronicities, so I should just warn you right now that if you hear me say something multiple times, it's because it's coming up in different parts of your chart, which is pretty cool, and it's something to pay more attention to. Like, it's just like a little bit more confirmation. So basically, I'm gonna go through the reading going very general to very, very specific. So the stuff in the beginning is like, I'm going to start with your aura type, which there are 5 of, and honestly most people are one of, like the 5th one is extremely rare, I'll put it like that. So that's like more general, and then as the reading goes on towards the end, it's going to get very, very specific, and that's the type of stuff that most readers don't actually go into because it's kind of hard to pull out. And yeah. And I'll also kind of like sprinkle in some actionable advice throughout as I think of it. I actually, as it stands, have very little written for you because you have a very interesting chart. It's kind of like you already know, you don't really need me. So there isn't that much, but I do have an exercise at the end that I would suggest that you try to do daily. Yeah, all right, we can get into it. So just a little bit about human design. It's based on Kabbalah and the Chinese I Ching system, which I'm actually not familiar with at all, so I don't really know what that is, and the Vedic chakras. But actually in human design, they say that we evolved from being, they called them centers instead of chakras, and they say that we evolved from being 7-centered beings, so like the 7 chakras, to now having 9 centers. So it's the same 7 chakras as in the Vedic system, plus 2 other centers. And basically the entire point of human design is to, the premise is that we're all unique, we're all here with this unique blueprint, we're all made differently, we, take in the world differently, we have we each have different ways that we digest food, we each have different ways that we operate, make decisions, and the idea is to show you your blueprint so that you can live with more flow and less resistance. So the things that I tell you, you could choose not to do, and that's fine. It's just you're gonna have a more difficult time. For example, like the digestive stuff, you can not eat that way, but if you do eat that way, you probably will digest your food better. So it's not a crisis either way. You can make your own decisions, but this is just a guide to show you how to live with more flow. Okay, so your aura type is, like, I would have bet millions of dollars that you had this type, like, just from the very little I know from you from your Instagram, it screams it. So you're what's called a manifesting generator, and it's actually a hybrid of 2 other aura types, manifestors and generators. And generators are the people who basically have like bottomless energy, and manifestors are the people who can make things happen, like put things into action. So you have a hybrid of that, and it comes with its own kind of unique qualities. One of them that's very prevalent, or I mean, it's just a very MG thing, is having a lot of different interests. So I actually, I have the same thing. And one thing that's been really hard for me in life, especially when I was in school and stuff, was a lot of like societal pressure to pick a lane and narrow down and specialize and like, have like a, like 2-word job title or like elevator pitch or something like that. But actually the way things work for you, you can't really come up with that because you have a lot of different interests and different things that you might want to do, and it's hard to specialize. And part of being an MG is just letting yourself get taken in all of your various interests, because they'll kind of like change, and you might find that you like have this hobby that you'll pick up that you'll be obsessed with for like 3 weeks. It's all you want to do, and then after 3 weeks you just like don't give a shit and never do it again. And that's fine. Allow yourself to do it. So my brother actually is also this aura type, and growing up he would like get into piano and like really get into it and then stop, and like he still does this, but our parents were always kind of hard on him because they were like, why do you keep dropping these interests? But that's just what MGs do. So really allow yourself, when you lose interest in something, to let it go, and that's fine. And you don't have to do things forever. You don't have to, like commit to one thing for the rest of your life. You can just do whatever you want, whenever you want. And that's kind of what works best. But I do want you to know, if just in case this helps you with like the mental part of it, it's not for nothing. So let's say like you become really obsessed with photography and like really into it, and then you lose interest in it. But then like a year later, you might do something where the things that you learned from that period of time where you were into photography now come into play again. So let's say like a year from now, you get really into fashion, let's say, and you want to start a fashion line. In the early stages, you're probably going to be taking those pictures yourself. So like what you learned from that period of time when you were into photography is now going to bleed into the next interest in a way. So just know that everything's happening for a purpose, and even if it feels like you're just like wasting time on things that you're never going to use again, it's not like that, because you're going to pick up skills and tricks and tips that can recycle into something new. Now, it's actually critical for you to do things that really light you up. And a lot of times when I tell my MGs or generators that, there's a bit of a hesitation, or because that sounds kind of selfish, like, oh, I'm just going to do all the things I like and not do anything else. Like, what a fabulous life, but like, we have to do this, we have to do that. Like, it's not all like fun and games. And that's true, it's not all fun and games. And I'm not saying never do anything you don't want to do. Sometimes we have to do shit. Like, I have to go to my brother's wedding next week, and I'm kind of excited. I'm really excited, but at the same time, I don't feel like traveling across the country. Like, I don't, so sometimes we have to do things that we don't really want to do, and that's fine. But like, over 80% of what you do has to be things that light you up. And it's not out of like, if it helps you to think of it like this, it's actually kind of a selfless act, because when you do the things that light you up, you actually literally generate energy. And that's where the term generator comes from. It's because you have an internal mechanism that allows you to generate energy. And not everyone has that. So when people who don't have that are around you, your energy literally infects them and they get energy. So other people are kind of counting on you to do the things that you light you up, so that you can generate energy and they can borrow your energy. So if that helps you really lean into the things that light you up, then, I hope it does. When you live according to your design and live in flow, then you should feel a lot of satisfaction. Like, that's like the high mood for you. But when you're out of flow, you'll feel frustrated. Okay, so the next thing is your strategy. And that's basically the way that you would best make decisions or like do things. And your strategy is to respond. And that basically means that when presented with something, you'll intuitively feel if the answer is a yes or no, but it kind of has to come in a yes or no question. So for example, if you're trying to decide what to eat, you'd be much, much, much better off instead of being like, what should I eat? Which is an open-ended question and you're sitting there like wondering, you'd actually be better off asking yourself a series of yes or no questions. So like, do I want Chinese? Yes or no? Do I want pizza? Yes or no? Do I want a salad? Yes or no? Do I want sweet green? Yes. You know, like keep going down a list of options and you have that strong like gut intuition, so you'll actually feel when it's a yes or a no. And I'm going to get into your intuition later because there's actually something a little bit interesting about your intuition that's a little bit different from most people who have this. So your authority is essentially your sacral chakra. That's like where you can feel your intuition. Um, Sorry, I wrote down know when you know. So yeah, you know when you know, I guess is what I meant to write. I don't know, it's kind of strange. But two things. One, you want to allow yourself to change your mind. And two, try for a period of time, anytime you have this like instinct or like gut feeling, write it down and then later revisit and see how things played out and how you felt. So for example, if you feel this like sudden ping, like I need to go to the store right now to get something. I don't even know what. I just know I have to go to the store. I just know there's something feeling, I have this feeling that I need to go. Write it down and write down exactly how you feel and where you feel it. So like get specific and somatic. So like I feel like a swirling in my belly and I have this feeling. And then later write down what actually happened. So like let's say you went to the store and you like randomly or like ran into someone you knew and it was really kismet because of this or that, or you know, this happened, or you went to the store, you remembered that you needed something different, or you saw something that jogged your memory and it gave you an idea, or maybe nothing happened that you know of. But when you do see something somewhat related, write it down, and then this will kind of help you over time as you revisit all these incidents. You'll learn to better differentiate just like the constant stream of ruminating thoughts versus what's actually an intuitive, deep gut instinct. Yeah, so you have this kind of like superpower where you're able to sense other people's thoughts and feelings. But the problem with that is that you have a tendency to get caught up in trying to solve other people's problems. So what you really want to do is you want to just remember that they're not your problems. I mean, it's that simple. You just constantly need to remind yourself that these are not your problems. Like, you don't need to spend 30 minutes Googling the right herb for someone to take. Like, you don't need to be like deep diving into other people's emotional trauma or like why they're not losing weight. These are not your problems. If someone's paying you to solve their problems, that's different. But regular day to day, these are not your problems. So remind yourself of that. You have really good communication skills, and you have this very you have this like ability to put things into action to make things happen. If you want something, you kind of like know how to navigate and do it and like make it happen and bring it into fruition. But you also have this like urge to do too much sometimes. So just watch out for giving away your energy to every impulse. You have a really strong sense of who you are, like a very fixed and reliable sense of self-identity. And you have a strong sense of direction in your life, and you're kind of able to like point the right direction for other people in their life because you really like understand the nature of human evolution, I guess. And yeah, essentially like you know who you are and you can help other people find who they are. Okay, so you're what I like to call a full empath because you have the ability to. I'm gonna get into the other two in a second, but you already know you have the ability to like sense people's problems. You have the ability to sense other people's sense of self-worth, just wordy, and you have the ability to sense other people's emotions. So you have like all three combined, which makes you like this super, super, super empath. And I'm going to talk about that in a second and like making sure that you actually protect your energy because it's a lot. Um, and really, okay, so let me just go to the self worth part of it. So basically, you may feel like you have an inconsistent sense of self worth and inconsistent willpower. Like one day you feel great about yourself and you like really have this go getter attitude and energy and you just want to do all the things and get all the things done. And then the next minute you just like kind of feel blah and you feel like not great about yourself. You start like negative self talk and like that's that can feel very frustrating. But what's actually happening is that you're just perceiving other people's sense of self worth and other people's willpower. So when your sense of self worth drops, it's not that you don't feel good about yourself anymore. You're around someone or feeding off of someone's energy who doesn't feel good about themselves. So, what I need you to do is really remember what's happening. And instead of being like, oh my God, this is so difficult and heavy to handle, instead, like, know that you have this superpower where you know how other people feel about themselves. That's literally a superpower. And think of it like that, view it like that, play with it a little, like, enjoy it, enjoy that ability to kind of like peer into other people. But a mantra that I would like you to repeat constantly is I have nothing to prove. So I would say this daily, honestly, and I'm not super into like affirmations and stuff, but this is one that I think you need to constantly say, like even if you have an EFT practice, like tapping, um, do that. If not, I have a video on my website that can demo it. And while you're tapping, just keep saying, I have nothing to prove. I have nothing to prove. You're prone to feeling pressure and stress. But again, actually, what's happening is you're feeling other people's pressure and stress. Um, but you may feel like you have this like urgency or sense of rush to get things done quickly because like there's part of you that thinks, oh, if I just finish this, I won't feel that urgency or that pressure or that stress anymore. But that's actually not what it is. It's coming from other people, and you rushing to do things quickly isn't going to solve the problem. So just breathe. And what I would recommend in that moment when you feel like that to do two things. First, check into your five senses. So like make note of all the things that you see, all the different colors that you see, all the different textures that you see. Make note of like how the air feels against your skin, like what temperature is it? Is it moving? Does it feel humid? Does it feel dry? What are you hearing? Are there sounds like far away, close up? Try tuning into some of the sounds. So let's say there's like a background sound coming from out the window. Tune into that sound and fade out your nearer sounds and like play with this like conscious attention a little bit. And the other one is a type of breathing I call balance breathing. I don't know what it's actually called. But what I want you to do is inhale for a count of 5, hold for a count of 5, exhale for a count of 7, and then hold again after you've exhaled for a count of 5. And just repeat that as needed. Sorry, my dog's scratching herself so loudly. Okay, so you have this ability to sense other people's emotions, and sometimes it feels like you're going through a little bit of an emotional wave. but what's happening is those are actually other people's emotions. So just keep that in mind and like release the need to get swept away with them. And this actually might be a good time to talk about protecting your energy. So there are a few things that I'd recommend for you. And I'm really sorry if this is like too woo-woo for you. You don't have to do them. It's fine. Like if it doesn't resonate with you, don't do it. But I'd recommend like sage or Palo Santo for just like cleansing your aura and cleansing the house regularly. If you're into crystals, black tourmaline would be like your best friend. Just keep it on you or like wear some constantly. Also, if you have selenite, just like a selenite wand, like cleanse yourself with that. And I just want you to remember and constantly remind yourself that these extra thoughts and emotions and the sense of self-worth and all these things are not yours, and just release them, and then be grateful for this ability that you have to sense other people, because it's really beautiful. Sorry, I'm just making a note of something I want to bring up at the very end. Okay, so you have this beautiful thing where you have like instant knowing intuition. So you have two things. One, you have the feeling intuition where you literally feel it in your gut. But you also have this instant knowledge intuition, and that's a really cool one, because you don't even, like with the instant feeling, you get a feeling, but you just know also. So one thing that's really important for you are places and spaces, and basically you know when you're in a place or a space that you're not supposed to be in, and when you find yourself in that situation, you need to just leave. Just go. That's it. The energy thing I've talked about, but again, it's important to know that when you are interested in something, you have bottomless energy. That's why, like, I don't know if you ever find yourself like down an intense rabbit hole of like researching something or like doing something, and all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, so much time has gone by. It's because you have that ability to generate energy. Okay, so it's really, really important for you to not take any actions until you have like this deep gut instinct to do so. And like your mantra here is, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And I have an exercise at the very end that I'm going to get into that I think you should do daily. Okay, this is going to sound repetitive, but like this same thing keeps coming up over and over again. It's really critical that you trust your intuitive impulses. I'm sorry I keep staring here. There's just some sound coming and it's really freaking me out. It's really important that you trust your intuitive impulses in the moment, like moment to moment instinct. So like if like suddenly you're like, it's 9 p.m. I need to run to the store. I don't even know what I want, but I have this instinct to go. Who knows? Maybe you'll meet the love of your life there. I don't know what it is, but you have that actual instinct and like intuition that you just need to like learn to hone into and listen to more. But whenever you feel an impulse to do something like that, do it. Self-care is very important to you, and you're kind of like instinctively defensive of your need for self-care. So like don't feel FOMO-ish or bad if you're declining invitations, to like stay in and do things, because your body actually knows when to prioritize like routine and structure and rituals and stuff. So do lean into that. But there's something I'm going to get into in a little bit, and I'll just address it there. Just keep in mind that there's a caveat to this. Basically, we're gonna go back to your intuition. You have really fucking strong intuition, girl. Like, this is like intuition from everywhere in your chart. It's insane. And like, this might sound like the type of thing I would say to everyone, but it's not. Actually, a lot of people don't have any of these things. Like, their intuition is that, it's not to say we all have intuition, but for some people it's harder to access and like in a different and more convoluted way. But you have all these like instant intuitive things. But basically, you're very innovative and you can bring an innovative direction to people. When you're tuned into your own intuition, you bring everyone else around you onto the right path for them. And so you're actually like incredibly magnetic and like really draw people to yourself. And it's not just like being pretty or like having a lot of followers or things like that. There's actually something deeper inside you, and it's that intuition thing. It's like you're so aligned that people just can't help but be flocked to you or flock to you. Don't know how to speak anymore. So you're really independent, which is cool. Like, you don't need someone to complete you, which like you would think I would say to everyone, but actually some people, myself included, have this thing where there's like kind of a gap in the chart, and like so I'm actively constantly searching for someone to fill that gap, but you don't have that, so that's really magical. You have a lot of personal power. You're very charismatic, and you're very busy, but your busyness attracts people. I don't know if that means something to you. All right. Very empathic and empathetic. Your soul wants you to move in a direction of more creativity, and you're like consciously trying to find secure grounding. You're kind of a chameleon. I don't know if this means something to you. It's very strange, but you sometimes are blamed for things that are not truly your fault. Like, I don't know if you found that, like, growing up, like you were just being blamed for things, or like now you're sometimes blamed for things. And that kind of leads to you feeling underappreciated. But just keep in mind that that's just kind of part of your design. And release the need to be correct or for people to know that it wasn't your fault. Just let it go. It doesn't matter. Like, you have so much else going for you. Who gives a fuck if some fucking loser thought something was your fault? I'm sorry I'm cursing so much, by the way, but it's just, you're so above it. Like, don't get sucked into the nitty gritty. Don't get, and like, loser is a mean term, but like, not everyone has as much going for them as you do. And like, who cares if like some girl is blaming you because like something happened? Like, who cares? There's so much else going for you. And also, 3 famous people who have this part of their, like, your chart also are Harry Houdini, Ram Dass, and Vincent Van Gogh. So that's kind of cool. All right, so we're getting towards the very end now. These are like very specific things for you. You digest food better in indirect sunlight rather than direct light, or even in the dark. Kind of a weird thing, but if you have a window that has a lot of like direct light coming at you, don't eat in front of that window. Just like eat in more diffused light. God, this is one of the strangest things I could say to a person, but you do better with direct rather than diffused sound. So Two examples of this are, for example, listening to things with headphones on rather than like speakers playing to the whole room, and having direct one-on-one conversations with someone instead of like a group conversation. Kind of strange, but whatever. You may benefit from like living on lower floors or even like in valleys rather than like the highest floor or like in mountains. All right, so this is the very last thing I'm going to say to you, and then I'll get into the closing exercise. So there's a bit of, like in human design, we talk a lot about like what's comfortable or like what we're already familiar with, but like where our soul wants to go. Like there's like this kind of tension, like there's like things that are shadowy and uncomfortable for us, but they're the direction that our soul wants to head into. And then there's things that we're really comfortable in that you might need to like move away from a little bit. So where you're really comfortable is like home, food, like nice fabrics, like things that feel comfortable, snuggling under blankets, eating a lot, being home, nice things, earthly possessions. These are where you're comfortable, but your soul actually wants you to move in a much more spiritual direction, but it's a very uncomfortable thing. Like I would imagine when I talk about spirituality, it might make you a little uncomfortable, or like you might be like, no, I think you're wrong. I don't know about that. But that's actually something you need to overcome. So I think that you should start meditating if you don't already, but I'm going to give you an exercise to do daily. So start with the meditation and then weave into the daily exercise. You may have like an overindulgence problem, like maybe like binge eating. I don't see it as being like drugs or alcohol or anything like that. To me, it looks like it's like a food specific. It might not be the level of binge eating disorder, but like a food specific overindulgence problem. One thing I would recommend is anytime you want to like eat, either write down or think to yourself, answer these two questions. What am I trying to gain from this? And what am I trying to avoid by doing this? So sometimes you're hungry and where you're trying to gain is nutrition and energy and fuel. That's fine. And like there's nothing really that you're trying to avoid. But a lot of the time, maybe, yeah, you want to like gain like the excitement or the fresh taste or whatever of food, but you're also trying to avoid feeling something. You're also trying to avoid boredom. You're also trying to avoid these various things. So just get in the habit of like asking yourself these two questions so that you can check in on what exactly is going on. I do want you to embrace spirituality over earthly indulgences. Again, the meditation. Another thing I'd recommend if you feel called to it is checking out the Womb Center. It's spelled WOOM. It's kind of like a breath work and like meditation-y type of space. They do sound baths like on Fridays maybe, or a different day, who knows. But try checking out their sound baths and their breathwork classes. I think that might be a nice thing for you. Also, if you ever want to go, I'd love to go with you. Okay, the very, very last thing before we move on. Very strange advice, but I want you to start looking at passive income sources. So like investments that you can make, even like down the line buying rental properties and renting it out, just sources of income where you don't have to do anything and it's just flowing to you. Make your money earn you. earn you money. And if you want, like I have my MBA, I'd love to talk to you about it separately sometime. Like I have good passive income resources if you're interested. But you know, if it doesn't speak to you right now, that's fine. Like with everything that I say, if it resonates with you, do it. If not, later revisit it. But like, don't force yourself into anything that you're like, no, especially with these things. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. There's a very last thing that feeds into this. There's something I see in your chart. It's kind of hard to explain, but maybe like some discomfort with sexuality, or like being a little shadowy about sexuality. By that I mean is like not fully accepting, like, do you have difficulty accepting yourself as like an adult sexual person? Like, is there something like, do you kind of try to like stay cute rather than like sexy, or like just like almost like there's something wrong with sexuality, like you haven't fully accepted it yet. I don't know, there's something weird I'm seeing about that, but I'm now uncomfortable. I'm sorry, because I can't believe I'm about to say this to you, and like you don't have to bring it up with me if it makes you uncomfortable. But if you don't masturbate, maybe look into masturbating more and set an intention when you do. So like, through this, I want to feel more connected to my body, or even like manifest, be like, I want to like use this energy to call in my partner or something like that. And one thing, if you're not partnered right now, which I assume that you're not, try to like make like a sacral connection with someone, like through your mind, before you masturbate, and then set an intention and masturbate. Again, we never have to talk about this again. I'm sorry I said that, but like there's just something in it, in your chart, that I see. Okay, so before I get to the closing exercise, I just want to reiterate a few points. You have nothing to prove. You have nothing to prove. You have nothing to prove. Say it constantly. Sit in front of a mirror and say it constantly. Keep in mind that you're super, super empathic. You're taking in people's thoughts and problems. You're taking in people's emotions. You're taking in people's sense of self-worth. Protect your own energy. Don't get carried away in other people's problems. The tuning into your five senses, and the balance breathing, the inhale, hold, exhale, hold. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. That, I mean, you could tattoo that on your forehead. That is the most important thing for you to remember. You have so much going for you. Just keep all this in mind. Like, you're so magical and magnetic. Don't forget that. Okay, and then this is the exercise that I really think you should do daily. So close your eyes. First, just do some kind of breathing. If you liked that inhale, hold, exhale, hold, I think that would be a good one for you. If not, you could just inhale for a count of like 7 and exhale for a count of 10. Whatever you do, just exhale for longer than you inhale. And just as you're doing it, pay attention to how the air feels going in and how it feels going out. So do that for a few minutes. Close your eyes. Do that for a few minutes. And then, or like for a few breaths, if a few minutes feels like too much, and it probably does from the get-go, do it for like 5 breaths or something. And then tune into your senses. I want you to pay attention to the sounds that you hear and the sensations that you feel, the ground beneath you, what's supporting you, the air against your skin, things like that. And then I want you to bring up your ideal life. And if you want, you can focus on specific things at different times. So like you can change it up every day. So like some days you can maybe focus on like the partner that you want, or the career that you want, or like the home that you want. Or some days it can be more general and open-ended and broad. Whatever you feel like doing in the moment, doesn't matter. But just really visualize that life and like live in it. So spend like in a day or an hour in this life that you want to create and get really specific. Note all the specifics. And then once you're like a while into it and you're kind of like, all right, I have a sense of this, I want you to ask yourself this question. What in my life, in my current life, does not support this life that I'm trying to create? And then immediately write down all of the answers that come to you. So I would imagine that the eating issues probably don't support that life that you're trying to create, but other things, and it could be dumb shit. It could be like, this top that I have doesn't fit into it. And then just constantly get rid of and say no to things that are not supporting the life that you want to create. What I want you to do is start saying no 50 times as much as you currently say no. Just constantly say no. When people ask you to do events, if it's not something that really resonates with you and lights you up, say no. Say no. Just constantly say no. Say no to everything that isn't in perfect alignment with the life that you want, and watch what grows instead. So like, let's say you really like feel like actually doing something, which I'd imagine is rare for you because you have like kind of a tendency to stay in your comfort zone, I'd imagine, and not want to go out of the house much. But let's say you're in this rare mood where you really feel like going out. Actually, that reminds me of the thing that I didn't address. So real quick, you do have a tendency to want to stay home and not want to get out of the house. So what I said before about prioritizing self-care, yes, do it, but be honest with yourself and have balance here. So like, don't use self-care as an excuse to stay home and play small. Like, yes, when you really feel that need to like stay home, get organized, take a bath, do prioritize your self-care, but don't use it as a shield to keep you in. Okay, so back to this. Sorry. Let's say like you really like, you feel like doing something, but like none of the people you feel like hanging out with are around. Don't settle for hanging out with someone who you don't really like. Or like, just don't settle. Say no to everything that isn't a hell yes. This is so important for you because you have so much energy and ability to do things that you can you can spread your energy to the wrong places. Keep it so that you keep building this life that you actually want, and like you have the best uses of your energy and your time and your space, really. So yeah, that's the closing exercise. If you have any questions, please like don't hesitate to hit me up, ask me anything. If anything didn't make sense, I know I just kind of whipped through it. I honestly like, I get in this like days when I do these and I don't even like know what's happening anymore. So like, if anything doesn't make sense or something feels incomplete or anything, just hit me up. All right. Sending you so much love. It was such a pleasure to do this.